story is going to take you on a journey from a man who was a young soldier who fought in wars to a man who was given the miracle of a throne being carried to him by the power of a jinn. Doesn't that sound amazing? Today's story is the story of Prophet Dawud alayhi salam and his son Prophet Sulayman alayhi salam. Many years after the death of Prophet Musa alayhi salam and before the birth of Prophet Isa alayhi salam, there was a lot of war going on at the time of Banu Israel because people kept coming to them and invading their homelands and fighting them. At the time, Prophet Dawud was not yet a prophet. He was a young soldier who would fight better than anyone else, and he killed one of the worst kings known as Jalut or Goliath. Prophet Dawud was also given the power to make shields, and so he was known as one of their best fighters. And after he killed the Jalut, the bad king, he was crowned as the king of Banu Israel. And when he turned around the age of 40, he was granted prophethood from Allah, and Allah sent him the books of the Zabur or the Psalms. Dawud was also taught by the mercy of Allah and the power of Allah to speak to birds. Whenever he would recite the Zabur, the birds would recite with him and they would praise Allah. And the mountains would also praise Allah, subhanallah. That's amazing. And so he was given special help against his enemies. The help of the birds, the help of the wind. And he was given wisdom from Allah to judge between what is true and what is wrong. And he was one of the most just and fair kings of his time.
SubhanAllah, it looks really pretty.
Doesn't it? You can imagine that this is the land that Prophet Dawud ruled over, with high mountains and beautiful songbirds that would sing with him the psalms. After a while, Prophet Dawud alayhi salam had a son known as Sulayman, who also became a prophet. Prophet Sulayman grew up to also rule and become a king of Jerusalem and was given wonderful powers by Allah. When Prophet Sulayman alayhi salam grew up, he was blessed with the ability to speak to animals. Can you imagine how amazing that is? And not only animals. He had control over the wind, over the jinn, over the elements. He had armies of elephants. Can you imagine how amazing that is? And he was able to understand, like his father, the language of the birds as well. By Allah's blessings and favor, he was able to control everything almost, subhanallah. And he used to employ them to whatever he liked. He would tell them, do this, and he commanded over them. One day, Prophet Sulayman alayhi salam was passing through the valley at the head of his army, his big army with elephants and lions and people with heavy armor. And while he was passing, he heard the whisper of a few ants. One ant said, "Oh ants, run off to your home before Sulayman and his army might walk over you by mistake and crush you." And because of Allah's great mercy on Sulayman alayhi salam, he was able to understand what the ants were saying, and he heard the ants plead to her people, and so he smiled. Then he was startled of the thought of how merciful Allah was upon him to let him understand this and not crush these poor ants. And he raised his hands to Allah and he said, "O my Lord, make me grateful to you for your favors which you have given me and my parents, and I will do what is right to please you, O Allah. And by your grace, make me one of your righteous servants." And so the entire army stopped for a few ants for them to go to their home safely. Isn't that amazing, subhanallah? One day, when Prophet Sulayman alayhi salam, the mighty king, was lining up his soldiers, he started asking about a certain bird that was late. He was like, "Where is this bird? Why is he late?" Do you know what kind of bird it was?
It was a hudhud.
That's right.
What is it in English?
In English, it's actually called a hoopie. Isn't that kind of funny?
Yeah.
And so, when the hudhud came, he knew that Prophet Sulayman would be mad at him, and he told him, "Before you get mad, I have news. I just saw something that you know nothing of. I come to you from the faraway lands of Sheba or Seba, where I found a woman ruler, and she is blessed with every virtue and has a splendid throne, and it's so amazing. But she and her people worship the sun instead of Allah. The Hudhud praised Allah, saying that there is no deity except for Allah, or no God worth worship except for Allah. Sulayman wasn't mad at the bird because he knew that he was late for a good reason. So Prophet Sulayman asked his aides from the jinn. He told them, who can bring me this throne, this amazing throne? And so they began kind of competing. One of them said, I can bring it to you before you can even stand up. Another one, who was given a lot of knowledge from the Book of Allah, said, actually, I can bring it to you before you can even blink your eye. And suddenly, in front of him appeared this amazing throne with rubies and gold, and it was so majestic, and it was glittering. And it was right in front of him. But Prophet Sulaiman did not take any pride. He did not say, oh, I'm so amazing, those jinn, they served me right away. Instead, he humbly prostrated himself or made sujood to show his gratitude to Allah. And he said, this is a favor from my Lord, to test my gratitude. He who gives thanks has much to gain, but he who is ungrateful will surely lose. As for Allah, he has no needs. He is supreme in honor. So can you imagine how humble Prophet Sulaiman must have been? He was given command over the wind, over the jinn, over the glorious elephants, over all animals. He could speak to birds. And he could even control the jinn. And yet he knew that this was all only from Allah. When the queen, and so he sent out for the queen to come and see that her throne came to him. When the queen reached him in Jerusalem, she was invited to sit on her own throne, which had been a bit altered, but she realized that it was her throne, and she was amazed at the power of Allah. How could it possibly reach Sulayman before I got there? And so Sulayman alayhi salam told her, I have even more to show you. And he ushered her into this beautiful palace. When she stepped onto the floor, she began lifting up her skirt, thinking she was walking onto water. But he told her this is actually made of glass. Can you imagine a palace made of glass and you walk on it thinking you're walking in the water?
It's amazing.
It really is.
Of course, this isn't the real palace, but we just wanted you to imagine what a glass palace on water could look like.
And so, in the same way that there was only one reality, which is that the glass is above the water and you're not actually stepping into the water, but it looks like you're stepping into the water, he explained to her the only creator is Allah, and he invited her to Islam. And the queen had to give up the worshipping of the sun and worship the creator of all things, Allah. And she understood Prophet Sulaiman's words at once and accepted his message, saying, "O my Lord, I have indeed sinned. I now submit in Islam with Sulaiman to the Lord of the world." Subhanallah. What an amazing story.
Yes.
Do you know the name of this queen, what her name was?
Was her name Balqis?
Yes. Her name was Bilqis, and she was the queen of a place called Sheba or Seba, which is thought to be in Yemen, not too far from where we are here in Saudi Arabia.
I have a few questions.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, when they said that in a blink of an eye and before you stand up, were they exaggerating or was it true?
Actually, they weren't exaggerating. The jinn literally brought an entire throne to Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam in the blink of an eye.
Wow.
Yeah.
My second question. Was there a war between the queen and the Malik Sulaiman?
No, actually, there was no need for a war. When she saw such amazing miracles, she instantly believed.
Wow. One more question. Did she live with Sulaiman or did she go back to her tribe?
After she believed and saw the miracles, she went back to her people in Saba and she told them about the message, and they all believed, and she remained queen over a Muslim empire.
That is amazing.
Yeah, subhanallah. I really actually enjoyed today's story, and I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed telling it. really is like a fairy tale, subhanallah, but it's true and it's written in the Quran, subhanallah. Assalamu alaikum, and I am really looking forward to seeing you guys next time.